Live.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. It's a nice lesson. We'll be on Lu Lu Wal Marjan fi mattafaqa alayhi shaykhan. And of course, we're still in Kitab al-Hajj. And we ask Allah, the Most High and the Sublime, to make it easy for all of the Muslims worldwide who intend to embark upon that epic life-changing journey. And we make a special dua for our brothers and sisters in certain and specific few Western countries which may have encountered or faced some unexpected or unforeseen difficulties and changes at the last minute with regards to performing Hajj. May Allah make them patient. And everything that takes place of good and not so good is from the qadr of Allah, and He, the Most High, has the wisdom in that. And the believer, no matter what he or she goes through, is always going to be on top and will always succeed. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. In the end, no matter what struggle, no matter what hardship, no matter what difficulty, at the end, وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. The end will be for the muttaqeen, as Musa alayhi salatu wasalam told his followers who are afraid, who are scared, who are terrified, who are outnumbered. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So that's food for thought. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is al-Muwaffiq wal-Hadi. Inshallah. So what chapter should we be in right now? Chapter 80 now. باب النزول بمكة للحاج وتوريث دورها. نعم. And for further clarification, may be different now, whereas we're using the front camera, but FYI, once again, if someone is using the camera themselves, if they drink with their right hand, it will appear to be the what? The left hand for the 1000th time. Even though most of the ulama of Islam hold the view is that it is not haram to drink with the left hand. That's FYI. Alright? Even though جمهور العلماء لا يرون تحريم الشرب الأكل والشرب with the left hand. Most of the ulama of Islam. Does that mean that's the strongest opinion? Does that mean that's the opinion that we believe is the most correct and follow? That's not the point. But the point is FYI. Those people who say things about speakers on YouTube, he's drinking with his left hand, stop drinking with the left hand, brother, stop drinking with the left hand, astaghfirullah, you drink with the left hand, and then they turn around and they say, we don't look at Quran and Sunnah ourselves, we just follow the scholars. You can't take the Quran and Sunnah yourself, you have to follow the scholars. You can't just take the dalil yourself, you have to follow the scholars, you have to follow the madhabs, you have to follow. So if you're going to follow, then actually learn how to what? Follow. And this is a very important point with regards to proper thought. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of masail just like this, that if you actually sat down and read, you would be shocked what you find what the scholars say. What you think is absolutely haram, agreed upon, so you'd be what? Mind would be blown if you actually read the Kutub al-Madahib. Imam Ahmed said this. Imam Malik said this. Shafi'i said that. Shaykh Fulan did this. The Hanbali madhab states that the hand should be what? And this, your mind will be blown. And it's a lesson for people, what we suffer from amateuristic strategy. Amateuristic strategy. right? They picked up a few things, heard a few things, saw a few things, and then they go what? Flying. They fly very, very, very fast, and they put themselves in harm's way, and they put what? Others in harm's way, and speak ill of others, look down upon others, criticize what? Others. No husn al maybe the brother's tired, maybe Kevin, no, haram, you're drinking with the left hand. You're speaking about Islam, telling people to fear Allah, and you're going to publicly just disobey Allah, just like that. Su'ul It's something that so many of us suffer from. Bad thoughts of our Muslim brothers and sisters in Islam. So let us beware. Wallahu ta'ala. Inshallah, chapter number 80 states, باب النزول بمكة للحاج وتوريث دورها. حديث أسامة بن زيد رضي الله عنهما أنه قال يا رسول الله أين تنزل في ذلك بمكة؟ فقال وهل ترك عقيل من رباع أو دور؟ وكان عقيل ورث أبا طالب وهو طالب ولم يرثه جعفر ولا علي رضي الله عنهما شيئا لأنهما كانا مسلمين وكان عقيل وطالب كافرين. Chapter 80 says, staying of pilgrim in Mecca, كذا in English, staying of pilgrim, the staying of the pilgrim, staying of pilgrims, says staying of pilgrim. In Mecca and about inheriting its housings. Hadith 857. Narrated Usama bin Zayd, may Allah be pleased with them both. I asked, O Allah's Messenger, where will you stay in Mecca? Will you stay in your house in Mecca? He replied, has Aqil left any property or house? Aqil, along with Talib, had inherited the property of Abu Talib. Ja'far and Ali did not inherit anything, as they were Muslims, while Aqil and Talib were disbelievers. So what's meant by this chapter heading? What's meant by this chapter heading is a pilgrim who is outside of Mecca, who's commonly or oftentimes referred to as al-afaqi, he who comes from the horizons. Someone who is outside of Mecca, isn't a Meccan, he's coming to perform Hajj and he wants to stay, he wants to stop, he wants to rest, he wants to sit still for some time in Mecca. Especially someone who has made hijrah from Mecca. Now they're returning to Mecca, performing Hajj. Where do they stay? How long are they allowed to stay? So on and so forth. Now, and with regards to certain properties, houses, lands in Mecca, and the fiqh of the seerah, the Prophet ﷺ wasn't indigenous to Medina. The Prophet ﷺ's background, his lineage, his family was from what? Mecca. And Medina was new. Medina was the adopted place of residence. He migrated, right? So obviously when a person migrates from a country, migrates from a town, migrates from a city, there's always going to be some type of connection one way or another. Is this not the case? One way or another. Brothers and sisters who migrated from Palestine to the United States, they're always going to have some type of love, affection, connection, relationship, business with what? This is how it is, period. Right? People that were brought to a country against their will. All right? Whether they were taken from the lands in the Far East, whether taken from the African continent to work the new lands in the New World, in the Caribbean, first and foremost, before the United States, the Caribbean, South America, before North America, let alone Southern slavery in North America, so on and so forth. Somehow, some way, they're going to find some way to be connected to where they came from, their roots, right? One way or another. A little or a lot, easily obtained or obtained through difficulty. So the Messenger of Allah said, returning to Mecca, there's going to be a few things that are going to be a bit different because that's where he came from. But there are rulings and there are regulations with regards to the muhajir staying in Mecca. Is he allowed to stay in Mecca for a certain amount of days? Because that would go against his hijrah. He left this place, right? There are certain rulings in which you cannot violate. Everyone understand this? Let alone the Prophet ﷺ's family, those who had accepted Islam and those who had died upon kufr, right? And the relationship with regards to the Prophet ﷺ and Ahlul Bayt, and who is or who isn't from Ahlul Bayt, right? The family of Ja'far, the family of Aqil, so on and so forth, right? Khair inshallah. So that's what this chapter heading is what? Discussing. That's what this chapter heading is discussing. So it states here that Usama bin Zayd, he asked the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, where will you go? Aina tanzilu fi darika? Your home, your house. Do you still have a house in Mecca? Do you still have property in Mecca? Will you go visit that place? Will you go stay in that place when you go to Mecca? And the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith here, he doesn't answer in the affirmative or the negative. But he asked Usama the question about some of his family members, some of his uncles, right? Some of his relatives. Has Aqil left anything? Did he leave anything? And this one inherited, they had shared the same religion. And these did not inherit because they did not share the same religion. As we know, from the things that prevent a person from inheriting is ikhtilaf al-din, different religion. Muslim not inheriting from a kafir, and a kafir not inheriting from a Muslim. Khairan inshallah. Khairan. All right. And Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says regarding this chapter, and once again, alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, as we had explained before, there will be things when you're studying a book, and subhanAllah, just the other day, not to get off the subject, I was surfing on YouTube again, and I found another person with no shyness, no shame, uttering out of his mouth that a Muslim should not read the books of hadith, period. And that the books of hadith were only written for scholars, and they were only written for people that could read, and the majority of the people in the Muslim world back in the day, they couldn't read, they were illiterate, and that the Muslim, the 9-to-5 Muslim, has no place reading the books of hadith. He's going to be confused, he's going to be misguided, he's going to go jump off a cliff, he's going to kill someone, etc. MashaAllah. People are going to sit back and say, oh, you know what, that makes so much sense. Intellectual Islam, this, Islamic thought, you know what, da-da-da. Don't read the books of hadith, but make sure you read what? This book of madhab, or this book of philosophy, right, of this great thinker. Read the book of medicine of this person. What type of misguidance, we don't have to say his name, was he applying? Read his books, that's fine. Islamic thought, Islamic philosophy, this, that, you can what? Tafaddal. Qala Rasulullah, the Rasul did, the Rasul said, the Rasul did, the Rasul said, the Rasul. Don't what? Stay far from reading those books, because those books will mislead you. MashaAllah. So, the Quran, of course, to the layman Muslim, to the non-Muslim, is absolutely 101% clear, right? There are no verses that are problematic, that are polemic. There are no ayats in the Quran that could be misused and abused. There are no verses in the Quran that could be misinterpreted. There are no verses in the Quran that could cause physical harm to people, to others. That's none of that, right? If a person agrees with that and says that, then obviously they've lost the debate. And if a person says, well, for sure, this person did this to this Muslim, and he said the Quran stated. And this person did this and did that and believes this because the Quran says so and so and so forth, then obviously he's going to fall into contradiction. So therefore, the only equation is the Muslim, the 9-to-5 Muslim shouldn't read the hadith, nor should he read, period. And it's that simple. Rather, you should only read what we give him to read. Once that mindset is placed down, the end is clear. And it'll end up just like the what? Previous nations, the previous sects, the previous ummahs, right? In which they have taken their rabbis, their monks, as arbaba min dunillah, wa liyadha billah. What's important is that studying this book, the hadiths are from Bukhari and Muslim. This is the point that has got me to speak on this. So because the hadiths are selected from Bukhari and Muslim, every fiqh ruling from A to Z is not going to be in order from A to Z, as we have what? Explained, right? So in the middle of rulings, you're going to find a chapter on virtues. And then there's going to be virtue, then it's going to go back to a ruling. And the chapter on the ruling could be something from the usul, the main chunky parts of the Hajj, the skeleton, or it could be something which is a distant branch. such as this. Everyone understand this? We've explained this before. And there is no problem with that. And the 9 to 5 Muslim who reads Bukhari, who reads Muslim, who reads the summary, who reads Riyadh Salihin, Bulugh al-Maram, who reads the compilation, at worst, he's going to be lost or confused, and he's going to ask a question. And when he asks a question, that is only going to lead him to more guidance. It's only going to lead him to learning his deen more. Hey, I didn't understand this. Can you explain this to me, O scholar? Can you explain this to me, O imam, local resident scholar? Versus close the books, be dumb, be stupid, just be a sheep, be a donkey with a carrot in front of your face, and just be led about. And that's going to make you a better Muslim. It's going to make you a greater Muslim, closer to Allah, by just being ignorant. Because you're not a 5 Muslim. You drive a bus, so you should have no interest in knowledge and scholarship. It doesn't concern you. You know how to pray according to what we say. You know how to fast according to how your forefathers fasted. That's what? That's all you need. But when it comes to this institute, this college, this philosophical rhetoric, this seminar, this debate, this video, then they say what? Listen and watch. Sign up and pay. But Sahih, Riyadh Salihin, Bulugh al-Maram, what? No. This is very unfortunate. It's not just one person that I'm talking about, right? If the Prophet ﷺ was standing in front of you, would you say, I told the people, O messenger, not to read what you said and did? Regardless of how difficult, how complex, regardless of that, would you have the nerve to say that in front of the Prophet ﷺ? That I warned the people from studying your life. I told the people, do not read about you. Serious. May Allah protect us from misguidance. He says regarding this chapter, قال القاضي لعله أضاف الدار إليه صلى الله عليه وسلم لسكناه إياه مع أن أصلها كان لأبي طالب أي لأنه الذي كفله ولأنه أكبر ولد عبد المطلب فاحتوى على أملاك عبد المطلب وحازها وحده لسنه على عادة الجاهلية. قال ويحتمل أن يكون عقيل باع جميعها وأخرجها عن أملاكهم كما فعل أبو سفيان وغيره بدور من هاجر من المؤمنين. قال داودي فباع عقيل جميع ما كان للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولمن هاجر من بني عبد المطلب. So first and foremost is the problem when he states, or the concept of the house being his house, because he stayed in that house. But the house actually belonged to Abu Talib. And Abu Talib was the one who did what? Who took care of him. The Prophet ﷺ was an orphan. He took care of him. He raised him. Let alone he became a prophet and became a messenger. Abu Talib defended him. And also Abu Talib was the oldest or the eldest of Abdul Muttalib's sons. Right? So Abu Talib, he says, فَحْتَوَى, he took the entire portion of the estate of all of the inheritance because he was the oldest. And that was the tradition of the people of Jahiliyyah. They didn't regard people's rights with regards to inheritance. The oldest one takes what? Everything. This person's son, he takes everything. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jalla abolished all of that in the Quran. Is that Allah Azza wa Jalla yusikumullahu? Everyone understand this? Etc. The specifics of the mawarith. And that it is a haqq, it is a right, whether you like the heir or not, that they receive from that which you leave behind. Moving forward, he says another possibility is that Aqil sold all of those houses and they no longer possess them, they no longer own them, as Abu Sufyan and others did with the Muhajirin. They left Mecca, they went to Medina, they left the way of the ancestors and the pagans, so they took their property. They seized their property. They didn't have any houses anymore. Moving forward, khair inshallah. So therefore Aqil, he sold everything that the Prophet ﷺ had, and all of Abdul Muttalib's descendants who made hijrah as well. وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهل ترك عقيل من دار فيه دلالة لمذهب الشافعي وموافقيه أن مكة فتحت صلحا وندورها مملوكة لأهلها لا حكم سائر البلدان في ذلك فتورث عنهم ويجوز لهم بيعها ورهنها وإجارتها وهبتها والوصية بها والسائر التصرفات. وقال مالك وأبو حنيفة والأوزاعي وآخرون فتحت عنوة ولا يجوز شيء من هذه التصرفات. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ said, has Aqil left any house for us? He says this proves another issue an issue of debate among the ulama of Islam, nothing to do with Hajj, and that is, how was Mecca made or turned into the lands of Islam? Was there peaceful conquest, or was it conquered through swords, through violence? Scholars of Islam, they differ. Imam Shafi'i here, he states, and those who agree with him, is that there was no fighting in Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ came with the Sahaba, the Meccans laid down their arms, they submitted, and that was it. And then there are other scholars, he says here, they hold the view, Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Al-Awza'i, شوف الأوزاعي هناك أئمة قبلهم ومعهم وإيش وبعدهم. They held the view is that Mecca was taken by force, and there are many rulings that come as a fruit and as a result of, was Mecca peacefully annexed into the lands of Islam, or was it conquered through violence? And that is with regards to the buying, the selling, the gifting, the renting, the endowing of homes. These houses are property of Darul Islam. These houses, these homes they remain the property of their original owners and inhabitants. Understand the difference? It's not your house anymore. We've taken it. It's ours. It now goes back to the treasury. This that verse is, everything's fine, everything is a peaceful submission, you keep your what? What happened there? Moving forward. He says, وَفِيهِ أَنَّ الْمُسْلِمَ لَا يَرِثُ الْكَافِرِ وَهَذَا مَذْهَبُ الْعُلَمَاءِ كَافَةً إِلَّا مَا رُوِيَ عَنْ إِسْحَاقِ ibn Rahawayh وَبَعْضِ السَّلَفِ أَنَّ الْمُسْلِمَ يَرِثُ الْكَافِرِ. He says this hadith also proves is that the Muslim is not to inherit from the non-Muslim. There is no irth relationship between a Muslim and a Hindu or Christian or Jew, an atheist, an agnostic, whatever religion or faith or spirituality that they have. That's taken directly from this what? ما يؤخذ هذا معنى وفيه يعني ويؤخذ منه ويستنبط منه ويستفاد فهمتها وفيه هذا معنى وفيه يعني وفي هذا الحديث من الفوائد من الأحكام ويؤخذ عرفت يستفاد من الحديث كذا. He says, this proves is that a Muslim is not to inherit from the kafir. And this is something, he says it's the madhab of the ulama kafa. 99.9% of the ulama all held the view is that the Muslim is not to inherit from the non-Muslim, except for Imam Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, Sheikh al-Bukhari. Once again, it goes to show is that we're not just for imams. And that the ulama, as Imam Ahmad and others would say, لا يزال الناس يخالف بعضهم بعضا. The people will always have and always will differ and go against. And just because these scholars or this group, they held the view, doesn't mean that another alim who's mujtahid himself is just going to blindly follow them. I disagree. وهكذا. طيب, Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, we all know who he was, his level and his status. And this was also the view of some of the Salaf as well. And there's another problem, as we said, with regards to ijma' and ittifaq. Let alone, what is the madhab of Salaf? What do you do if the Salaf themselves disagree? And the problem, right? They held the view is that the Muslim is allowed to inherit from the kafir. So there's a difference of opinion among the scholars of Islam. Most of the ulama say what? No. Your grandmother, your kafir, whatever, you cannot what? Inherit from them. Most of the ulama hold the view is that as haram. Some said it's what? It's okay. He says, وَأَجْمَعُوا أَنَّ الْكَافِرَ لَا يَرِثُ الْمُسْلِمِ. But the scholars unanimously agree on the opposite, the other side of the coin. And that is that the kafir is not to inherit from? Unanimously, no, he says. There's a different two-way street here. So there's difference of opinion with regards to the Muslim taking from the unanimous is that the kafir does not inherit from the Muslim. وستأتي المسألة في موضعها مبسوطة يعني في كتاب المواريث. He says, and this issue will be explained in detail in its proper place, meaning when he speaks on the rulings of inheritance and wasiyah in Sahih Muslim. And obviously, as we've explained many times before, from one thing we learn 10,000 things, right? You studied it in brief in Kitab al-Hajj. You studied it in detail in Kitab. You studied it back and forth, right? Khair inshallah ta'ala. Obviously, there are other details and there are other issues with regards to the Muslim and the non-Muslim inheriting from each other. Is there a difference between inheritance and a will? Can a non-Muslim put a Muslim in his or her will? Is that lawful? Hadha hila, or is that a trick, like the Sabbath, putting the net in the water the night before, and then collecting the fish the day of? Everyone understand this? Person tells his non-Muslim grandmother who's sitting on what? She's sitting on what? The bank, huh? She's sitting on what? On the bank, out of the bank. Not a bank, huh? Jalisa, out of the bank. No doubt. Grandma got that what? Whatever it may be. Retirement, insurance, whatever. She got a lot of money. This is a fact, right? And you tell her what? Grandma, make sure you what? Methadone. And don't allow it to be methadone. And then obviously, this is a big problem. And this is one of the harms of living in a secular, non-Islamic society. And we've explained this many times before. And unfortunately, many people, they think and they feel, oh, living in America, Canada, I can go to the mosque, I fast on Ramadan, I pay my zakah, I made Hajj, khalas. Right or wrong? I don't have to make hijrah, there's no need to make hijrah, we're comfortable here. We can practice Islam. But these people, we're included in this, they don't get it, is that practicing Islam is much more than just that. And there are many problems that you face living in a secular, non-Islamic, non-Sharia society, even if it's overseas. Don't think that just because the countries in the Middle East is that it's what? Sharia compliant. Don't think that. Secularism, imperialism, all the isms are what? It's a global system. It's a global system. What's important is that when you die, what happens with your money, your property? What happens? Where does it go? You have to do what? Will and a testament. But in Islam, a will and a testament is different than what? Inheritance. I don't like you. I never liked you. Even though you're my son. Even though you look just like me. But I never liked you. So therefore, when I go, what? You get nothing. I'm going to give it to Abdurrahman, my second son. I'm going to leave it to my daughter, Karima. I never liked you. Right? Or I'm going to leave it for my dog. Nah? Or I have a wife, but I'm going to leave it to my girlfriend. Nah? I'm going to take you out of my inheritance because it's not in the what? The will. But in Islam, the son that I never ever liked is supposed to what? Inherit. Understand the difference? That person is supposed to get the wealth whether I liked him or not. It's his haqq. But will and inheritance, will and testament, what? The owner of the wealth while he's alive is going to designate what? Who gets what? Who gets what? Let alone they give the money out before they die. That's another problem. That's a huge problem. I give my daughter this house, I give my son these apartment buildings, and I give you such and such. That money is only supposed to be disseminated and passed out after what? Death. So that's a big problem, living in a place in which the Sharia court is not the main court. It's a big, huge mushkila with regards to the rules of inheritance. Can a person inherit from his Christian grandmother or not? Can his Christian grandmother put him in the will or not? Is that sidestepping the rules? Because if you're an heir, you're not supposed to go into the will. Can an heir go into the will? We've explained all of that. You can find that on HadithDisciple shop. We did a full, I think, 2-part or 3-part workshop on the rules of inheritance. You guys get the point that I'm trying to make. Is that it's much more to Islam than just making salah and fasting. Not scorning those two, of course. But having an Islamic lifestyle is a full lifestyle from the cradle to the grave. And there are things that the Muslim government, the Muslim ruler, is supposed to enforce no matter what, which you'll never ever be able to get living in Canada or the United States or UK. And many things, unfortunately, will be left to the discretion of the Muslim, which is against the wisdom of the Sharia. The ruler is supposed to step in and say, no, you have to do this. You must take this woman back. You must give this person this money. You have to give this property to this person. Your back is to be whipped. Not if I want to show up in court, I'll show up, and if I don't want to, what? I don't want to. So that's a problem of the secular lifestyles that we live in which a person is allowed to have his or her own taste, his or her own discretion with regards to following it or not. And that's why Uthman radiallahu anhu is quoted to have said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَزَعُ بِالسُّلْطَانِ مَا لَا يَزَعُ بِالْقُرْآنِ, is that Allah will use the sultan to enforce that which the Quran can't enforce or won't enforce. Is that Allah will allow the sultan to inhibit people from violating Allah's rules more than the Quran's recitation. Quran says don't drink, right? Don't drink alcohol. Many of us will continue what? Drink alcohol, get drunk. Versus if I get caught drunk, it's my back flogged. Quran says don't make zina. But if I get caught making zina, pebbles will be thrown until I die. Right? Quran says don't steal, man. I'm taking that. Give me that. If I get caught stealing, you understand? So the enforcement of the law, just like here in America, is no different. There's no cops outside. What? So I'm taking this light. You know what? What the brother said in California, he said, this stop sign is unworthy of my brakes. Literally. It doesn't deserve my brakes. He said the pressure on my brakes, the money, that's not worth it. Man, a cop is sitting right there with a coffee and a donut. No disrespect to cops. Inshallah. Hopefully not. What is he going to do? He's going to stop. He's going to what? He's going to obey. Because that's law what? Enforcement. Not law conviction. The aqidah that you should stop is the right thing to do. You don't stop, you'll be penalized. That is the hikmah of the what? Sharia. Everybody's not just going to stop just because the Quran says stop. Everybody's not going to do just because the Quran says what? Do. And that is the what? And this is from the harms of living in the societies in which we live. I can take your money. You make a majlis, imam will speak about it. I don't care about him. I'm not going to no masjid. I'm not giving you anything. That's your imam, not what? Not mine. And it happens way too often. May Allah protect us and help us all. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Khair inshallah. Next chapter, the author states, باب جواز الإقامة بمكة للمهاجر منها بعد فراغ الحج والعمرة 3 أيام بلا زيادة. حديث العلاء بن الحضرمي قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم 3 للمهاجر بعد الصدر. Chapter 81 states an immigrant is allowed to stay for 3 days in Mecca after Hajj and Umrah and not more. Hadith 658 is narrated Al-Ala bin al-Hadrami. Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, an immigrant is allowed to stay in Mecca for 3 days after departing from Mina. Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says regarding this chapter, okay, inshallah, we'll take this in the next class. Wallahu ta'ala alam. وإياكم.